Imagine an artwork so extraordinary that kings, emperors, revolutionaries, and even dictators have all fought to possess it. A painting so powerful that it has been stolen more times than any other work in history. And a work so mysterious that even now, one of its most important panels is missing. Gone without a trace for over 80 years. This is the Adoration of the mystic Lamb, better known as the Ghent Altarpiece. Created in the 15th century by Jan van Eyck and perhaps his brother Hubert, it is not only a masterpiece of painting, it is one of the great turning points in the story of art. But it is also a survivor. Over the centuries, it has been looted by Napoleon, divided between countries, hunted by the Nazis, targeted by thieves again and again. And through all of this, it has clung to life. It has been hidden in attics, smuggled across borders, concealed behind false walls, and buried deep underground. And yet, when you see it today, the colors still glow as if they were painted yesterday. The faces still meet your gaze across 6 centuries, and the mysteries it holds still provoke awe and speculation. So why does it matter? Why this painting more than any other? The answer lies in its beauty, its meaning, and in the incredible, improbable story of how it has survived. The year is somewhere around 1415 to 1420. Europe is emerging from a darkness that is not just metaphorical. The Black Death had swept across the continent less than a century before, killing between 1/3 and 1/2 of the population. Entire villages vanished. Fields went untended. Families were broken. The scars ran deep, not just on the land, but in the psyche of the people. And yet, out of this devastation, came renewal. Trade routes reopened, cities flourished. And in the Low Countries, the thriving towns of Bruges, Ghent, and Antwerp became powerhouses of commerce and culture. This was Flanders, a crossroads of Europe, where goods, ideas, and people flowed freely. Here, the wool trade from England, the spices from the East, and the cloth from the looms of Bruges made fortunes, and fortunes meant patronage. The church remained the dominant commissioner of art, but now it was joined by merchants, bankers, and wealthy officials. They were not kings or princes, but their money could command the talents of the finest artists in Europe. In Ghent, 2 such citizens were Jodocus Vide and his wife Lisbeth Borluut. Both came from influential families. Jodocus was a politician, serving as a municipal official. Lisbeth came from a wealthy merchant lineage. Together, they had the resources and the ambition to commission something extraordinary. Their chosen site was the Church of St. John the Baptist, later renamed St. Bavo's Cathedral. Their chosen artists? The Van Eyck brothers. The inscription that once adorned the frame read, "Hubert van Eyck, greater than anyone, began this work. Jan van Eyck, second in art, completed it at the request of Jos Vide on the 6th of May, 1432. The wording is tantalizing and puzzling. Why call Hubert greater than anyone if his surviving works are unknown? Was this genuine acknowledgement or a respectful invention by Jan to honor a deceased brother? We may never know. But what is certain is that Jan's hand shaped the final work, and that the result would astonish Europe. Before Van Eyck, most European painters worked in tempera, pigments mixed with egg yolk. Tempera dries quickly, which limits blending and subtlety. Oil paint existed, but Van Eyck refined its possibilities. By mixing pigments with linseed or walnut oil and applying them in delicate, translucent layers, he could create colors of astonishing depth. The effect was transformative flesh that glows with lifelike warmth, jewels that seem to sparkle, fabrics that shimmer with woven detail, landscapes that stretch into misty infinity. Where Italian painters like Masaccio were exploring perspective and monumental form, Van Eyck was rendering reality itself with a fidelity that felt miraculous. The Ghent Altarpiece was the first great monument of this new vision. For most of the year, the altarpiece would be kept closed. The exterior panels are painted in a sober palette. At the top, the Annunciation unfolds in a modest Flemish room, not a palace, but a domestic interior familiar to the viewers of Ghent. Gabriel, in white robes, delivers the message. Mary, in deep blue, bows her head in acceptance. Above them, in grisaille, shades of gray, are the prophets and sibyls, foretelling the coming of Christ. Below, Jodocus and Lisbeth kneel in prayer, painted with unflinching realism. Their faces are lined with age, their expressions solemn. Between them stand painted statues of St. John the Baptist and St. John the Evangelist. So skillfully rendered, they seem carved from stone. Even here, in its most restrained form, the altarpiece displays Van Eyck's genius for making paint defy reality. On feast days, the great wings would swing open, and the transformation would be breathtaking. The pace slows, music swells. At the center is the Adoration of the mystic Lamb, a scene drawn from the Book of Revelation. A lamb stands on an altar, blood pouring into a golden chalice, the sacrifice of Christ, offered for the salvation of humanity. Angels kneel in reverence. Some bear the instruments of the Passion, the cross, the lance, the sponge of vinegar. Others swing censers, the smoke curling into the air. From 4 directions, processions approach, prophets and apostles, martyrs in white robes, church fathers and theologians, crusaders, knights, hermits, and pilgrims. The ground is a meadow thick with flowers, each identifiable, daisies, irises, lilies, each carrying symbolic meaning. Beyond stretches an impossibly detailed landscape. Rolling hills, forests, rivers, a walled city glimmering in the sun. Above this earthly gathering, the heavenly court presides. In the central panel, God the Father, or Christ in majesty, sits enthroned, robed in red, crowned with a triple tiara. To his right is the Virgin Mary, serene, crowned with stars. To his left, John the Baptist, gaunt and solemn. On the far sides, choirs of angels sing, mouths open mid-chant, their expressions rapt. Angelic musicians play lutes, harps, and organs, each instrument painted with painstaking accuracy. At the very edges, Adam and Eve stand naked, life-sized and startlingly human. Adam's ribs, Eve's soft belly, the shadows on their skin, all rendered without idealization. This was the first time since antiquity that such realism had been applied to the human nude in Northern art. The Ghent Altarpiece is not just a painting. It is a theological universe. Every inch of it was carefully chosen, each detail designed to teach, to inspire, and to provoke contemplation. Let's walk through it, panel by panel, not as an art historian in a lecture hall, but as a visitor in 1432, stepping into St. John's Church on a feast day. when the wings are open and sunlight is falling across the gold leaf. At the very center sits a majestic figure. Scholars debate whether it is God the Father or Christ in majesty. He is robed in deep, glowing crimson, the color of divine love and sacrifice, and crowned with a triple-tiered papal tiara. His right hand is raised in blessing. In his left, he holds a crystal scepter, its transparency painted with microscopic precision. The jewels on his robe are so detailed that each one appears to catch light differently, as if Van Eyck studied how amethyst refracts, how pearls glow, how rubies burn. To the viewer's left, Mary sits enthroned, clothed in a robe of deep ultramarine, a pigment made from ground lapis lazuli, more costly than gold. Her head is crowned with 12 stars, a symbol from the book of Revelation. She reads from a prayer book, her expression contemplative, as if still meditating on the moment Gabriel visited her decades earlier. To the viewer's right, John the Baptist, bearded and austere, wears a green mantle, the color of new life, but also of the wilderness where he preached. He holds a book and points toward the Lamb below, fulfilling his role as the one who identified Christ. Ecce Agnus Dei. Behold the Lamb of God. Flanking Mary and John, angels stand in two groups. On one side, a choir sings, mouths caught mid-vowel, their harmonies frozen in paint. On the other, angelic musicians play lutes, harps, and an organ whose pipes gleam with reflections of unseen windows. Van Eyck even painted the tiny brass pins on the strings of the instruments. On the far ends, Adam and Eve stand in niches. They are startlingly human. Adam's heavy brow, Eve's rounded stomach, the shadows beneath her collarbone. These are not the idealized nudes of the Italian Renaissance. They are uncomfortably real, reminders that salvation is necessary because of humanity's fall. Above Adam and Eve, small panels depict the sacrifices of Cain and Abel, the first offerings in biblical history, prefiguring the sacrifice of the Lamb. The lower register bursts into life. The central panel shows the Lamb of God standing on an altar, a wound in its breast, pouring blood into a golden chalice. This is the heart of the altarpiece. The Eucharist, the central mystery of the Christian faith, made visible. The Lamb's expression is serene, even knowing. Its halo radiates in perfect concentric rings. From all four sides, groups approach the altar. Prophets and apostles from the New Testament, their robes heavy with folds and shadow. Martyrs in white, bearing palms, symbols of victory over death. Crusaders and knights, their armor reflecting the sky. Hermits and pilgrims, their faces sunburned from travel. Each figure is distinct, as if drawn from real life. Van Eyck did not paint types. He painted people. Behind them, the earth itself is redeemed. Meadows bloom with hundreds of identifiable plants. Trees cast soft shadows on the grass. A river winds toward a distant city, the heavenly Jerusalem, its towers catching the morning sun. In the foreground, water gushes from the fountain of life, running toward the viewer. Tiny ripples catch the light, each one painted with patient precision. The water flows out of the painting, symbolically toward the worshipers in the church, toward us. And this is why the Ghent Altarpiece mattered so profoundly in its own time. It was not just a window into heaven. It was a mirror of earth. It showed the divine not as distant and abstract, but as present in the textures, faces, and landscapes people knew. It's 1566. The Protestant Reformation has swept across Europe. In the Low Countries, Calvinist iconoclasts, believing religious images to be idolatrous, storm into churches, smashing statues and burning paintings. In Ghent, the altarpiece narrowly escapes destruction. Quick-thinking cathedral staff dismantle it and hide it in the tower until the violence passes. This would be the first of many close calls. Fast forward to 1794. French revolutionary forces, under orders from Napoleon Bonaparte, occupy the Austrian Netherlands, modern-day Belgium. Artworks are seized for the glory of the French Republic, then the Empire. The central panels of the Ghent Altarpiece are taken to Paris and displayed in the Louvre. For over 20 years, Parisians can see the Adoration of the mystic Lamb alongside the Mona Lisa and the Venus de Milo. After Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo in 1815, the panels are returned to Ghent, but the wings remain behind. During the 19th century, in a move that still causes controversy, the cathedral sells several panels to an art dealer. These eventually find their way to Berlin, into the Kaiser Friedrich Museum. For decades, the altarpiece exists in two halves, separated by hundreds of miles. When World War I ends in 1918, Belgium demands the return of the Berlin panels as part of Germany's reparations under the Treaty of Versailles. The panels are shipped back to Ghent in 1920, finally reuniting the altarpiece after over a century apart. The citizens of Ghent wake to shocking news. During the night, thieves have entered St. Bavo's Cathedral and stolen two panels, the Just Judges and St. John the Baptist. Soon, a ransom note arrives, demanding 1 million Belgian francs. The thief returns the St. John panel as a goodwill gesture, but keeps the Just Judges. Police trace the scheme to a man named Arsène Goedertier, a local dealer. On his deathbed, Goedertier tells his lawyer, "I alone know where the Ghent altarpiece is. The one panel is in a place where neither I nor anyone else can take it away without arousing the attention of the public." He dies without revealing the location. The Just Judges remains missing to this day, replaced by a meticulous copy. In 1940, Nazi Germany invades Belgium. Hitler has long coveted the Ghent altarpiece for his planned Führer Museum in Linz, Austria. The panels are seized and eventually transported to the Altaussee salt mines in Austria, stored alongside thousands of stolen artworks. As the Allies advance, Hitler issues the Nero Decree, ordering the destruction of all cultural treasures if they cannot be saved for Germany. Explosives are planted in the mine. In the final days of the war, Austrian miners and local resistance fighters defy orders, removing the explosives. The altarpiece is rescued by the Monuments Men, an Allied unit dedicated to saving art from Nazi theft and destruction. Today, the Ghent altarpiece resides in St. Bavo's Cathedral, enclosed in glass and carefully climate-controlled. Recent restorations have revealed Van Eyck's original colors, far brighter than centuries of varnish had allowed. Infrared reflectography has uncovered underdrawings, revealing how Van Eyck adjusted compositions as he worked, sometimes shifting a hand, altering a gaze, or changing the angle of light. It remains one of the most studied, most visited artworks in the world. The Ghent altarpiece matters because it represents a turning point. The moment Northern European art stepped into a new world of realism and human connection. It matters because it has been a silent witness to history, surviving wars, revolutions, thefts, and ideological purges. And it matters because it reminds us that beauty and meaning are worth defending, even at great risk. The missing Just Judges panel is a scar in its history, but also a challenge, a reminder that cultural heritage is fragile, and that once lost, it may never be found again.